Hi folks, welcome to the release video for the much anticipated 5.0 release of the Portal Connector. I'm Steve Webb, VP of Product Development for the Portal Connector. I'll take you through some of the features for the 5.0 release and then guide you to some of the resources available for 5.0. We've added a ton of features to the 5.0 release. The migration module, FormFlow, language mapping, support for CDS 2.0, and a whole variety of feature enhancements. So jumping into the release, first up is the migration module. The migration module was designed to alleviate the stress and pain of moving configurations and customizations from one environment to another. Currently, there are several ways to do this throughout the Portal Connector, including using Sitefinity Site Sync functionality, or even using the accelerator import-export utilities. The challenge with the Sitefinity Site Sync module is in its complexity, as well as licensing. To use Site Sync, you would require a Sitefinity Professional license, as well as the Site Sync add-on, which could add additional cost to your overall solution. The challenge with the Portal Connector Accelerator Builder is that it wasn't intended for a migration use. It was more intended for creating one-off solutions that can be imported into multiple environments. But the migration module was designed to move these customizations and configurations in an easy-to-use and intuitive interface. Let's take a look and see how the migration module works. Here we have a typical customer self-service portal. This is usually the demo site that the Portal Connector provides to its customers. You can see that we have knowledge base articles. Those articles could also be sorted by the most popular, most recent, top rated. Clicking into it, you will see the details of that article. As the user that's logged in right now, Jen, she could also go in and see her support dashboard. Maybe Jen wants to modify her personal profile or access the forums. You can see that there's quite a few customizations to this site. What we plan to do is take all of this customization, including the template, and migrate it to a brand new site. For that purpose, we've created an empty site called TPC Migrate. This would be the site that will take those configurations. So let's get started. Logging into the administrative area for the TPC5 site, what we want to do is set up a connection to the Migrate site. The first thing we have to do is create a user to use on the Migrate site. This user would be the user that we use as a service account to migrate the changes to this environment. So let's create that user. So username, we'll go with sync user. Give it an email address. And then a secure password. Now, because this user is actually going to be used to create content, we want to make sure that it has sufficient rights to access that content. Create this user. And now we have that user created and we can configure our migration site. So to access migrations, it is under the administration menu. Under migrations, the first step is to create a connection. So clicking on connections, add. This is really where we define where we want to push that content to. So we'll give it a target name and we'll call this production possibly. The URL And we're calling this TPC migrate.crm portal connector.com. Now the target site key, that's a unique key that prevents other sites from migrating content to a site unless they actually have that key. To get that key, you have to go into the migration module of the destination site. And it's easy to find. It's under connections, and there it is there, current site key. Again, this prevents other sites from migrating content to a site that doesn't have permission. Flipping back to our source site, we'll just paste that migration key right in there. Enter in our username, sync user at CRM portal connector.com, our secure password. And then if you're using an older version, you may have a different user provider. So if you do, you can actually enter in the user provider here as well. So we're going to add the new connection. There we go, production. And we can add as many of these as we like. It's only a one-time type situation, so you don't always have to go off and get that site key. Once you have it configured once, you can migrate to that environment multiple times. So now that we have that configured, the next step is actually specify what you want to migrate. And you can see here when we're going to migrate, it's already selected our only connection that we have. We can click on test. We're good, so it's connected. And then what we can do is we can just specify what content we want to migrate over. As I said, we want to make this intuitive. You know, other migration type utilities, you have to select specific content. So you have to go through and you select each page, select each form that you want to migrate over, maybe individual pieces of content, and things get missed, things get lost. With the migration module, essentially what it does is that when you select a page, it's going to go out to the whole site, grab all the content that's related to that page or that page actually depends on, whether that's forms or images or templates. And then what it's going to do, it's just going to grab all of that, package all up in one nice neat bundle, and then export it over to that new environment. So what's great about this is that if you're working on a specific set of functionality, say for instance maybe a whole profile management type section, and you have other developers working on the support section. Once that profile section is done, you can just select that profile section and migrate that over to your production environment, and you don't have to worry about any of that support functionality that's in development still being migrated over. So I'm going to take the whole site. So there we are there. Scroll down here. I'm going to give this a name. And you don't have to, but it's always good to understand what you're moving over there. Oh. A couple extra letters there. Now, again, it's going to take all those widget templates, the site templates, the resource packaging. So if you're using any type of MVC template, so take all of that. But you can also export the permissions. So if you set specific permissions on these pages, or if a specific user has permissions to these pages and you create additional roles, you can export those as well. So I'm going to take all of that, and then simply when I click on this button and confirm it, it's going to begin that export. Okay, before I click this button, I think it's important to point out that I'm importing into a completely blank environment. So if I take a look at that destination TPC migrate and I go into my pages, you'll see there's no pages. If I go into the content under forms, there's no templates. So it's a completely fresh environment. And when we import, it's going to take that whole portal back over to that environment. So let's just click on that again. There we go. So the job is going to start up. So another important thing to mention is, as this is exporting and importing, when I go back to that migrate, and we look at all of this, all this content that we're migrating, if I only migrated, say for instance, this profile page, so if I take that profile page, if it had any dependencies on other pages, so say for instance it had a template that actually had a login widget on it that pointed to a login, a login landing page, it's actually going to take that page as well. So it doesn't just fork out to content, it's going to take absolutely everything that this particular page requires, whether it's through its template, through a page it's linked to. So if this page is linked to this page and then this page is linked to this page, it's going to start grabbing all of that content. So if you only select one page to migrate, you might notice that it's actually taken 5 pages. So back to our jobs here. See how that's coming along. Oh, is it done? Oh, there it goes. It's complete. So let's jump over to our environment here. Open up our pages. So there's all of our new pages. We have all of our forums, all of our templates. So there they are there. If I hop into this front end here, just takes a second to spin up all of that. There we go. So now we have the exact same portal that we had originally, and we just migrated all of that content over. So what's more important is that now that we have that first migration over to that portal, now if we actually changed individual pages, so if I go over here and I say for instance I change that home page, and maybe we add a form to that home page. So if I open up that home page, and if we, like I said, add a form to it, so scroll down, take this form manager, and of course I'm just going to drop it in anywhere. I'm not going to make it look all nice and pretty. So I'm going to select a form, maybe a contact us form. I think we might have one in here somewhere. Yeah, there it is right at the top. So there it is there. Well, that's actually a contact. That's not contact us, but that's that'll work just as well. So click on save. All right, publish this. Now heading back to my migrations. And let's just configure another one here. So I'm going to take that home page this time. Home page, and then just again, just click on that migrate to production. This shouldn't take too long, so it's just the home page. So we do have some filters here. You'll notice here that doesn't actually show the completed jobs. We're gonna actually change that so it does display the completed jobs by default. Give this a couple more seconds. There we go. Schedule and import. And it's done. So now if I come back over to my site and I refresh this, we'll have that updated home page with that new form on it. So now of course you can take those individual pages over as well. There you go. There it is. So it's pretty seamless. It's a great addition. One of the main principles that we have here is to keep things simple. And what we want to do is we really strongly believe that migrating from any environment to another environment should be pretty much out of the box functionality for any type of portal solution or any type of website solution. So in saying that, there's no additional licensing fees for the migration module. It comes out of the box with the portal connector. Next up on the list is one of my personal favorites, FormFlow. So what FormFlow is, basically it's a tool that allows you to build out workflows with forms and rules and create multi-page type scenarios. So let's jump into it and I'll show you how that's configured. Okay, so here we are in our demo site. So I'm going to first create a page. I already have some forms actually created for this demonstration. So I'm going to go into my pages. Let's create a new page. We'll call this FormFlow. We'll keep it showing in navigation. Let's select a slightly better template. Let's go with the self-service inner. Click on done, and then create and go to add content. So you notice for FormFlow, there's a new widget over on the side here. It's called FormFlow. It's pretty intuitive. Let's just drag that on there. And then essentially it's just like configuring the form manager. You just go into, click on edit for that. And then you can define a flow. So as I said, it's more for multi-step type forms, but also decisions and being able to navigate to different forms based on the data that's entered from the user. So here we are. By default, it has that first form on there. I'm just going to move that over a little bit and just configure that little widget there. So first form, so I go down here. Like I said, I have a few of them already configured. So I'm going to take this contact form. Bunch of options. We can have it customly pass in other parameters to the next form or to the next rules. So you can take any of those fields that are on that form and pass those through via query string. By default, it will pass in all the created record IDs, the first created record only. So if you do happen to have multiple contacts on there, you can specify whether only to pass in the first contact, which is usually the primary contact or something along those lines. And also, if you're passing parameters through to other forms, you can continue to pass those on all the way through by just keeping that checked. So for this one, it's our first form. So here it is. We can give it a custom name if we want to, so like contact information. And then we just click on save. So there it is. So from here, what I'd like to do is actually branch out. So now I have these other capabilities. You'll see here we have forms, pages, and rules. So I'm going to actually add a rule to this. So just drag it on and drop it in place. Clicking on that rule. Give that a descriptive title, have spouse. And then I can just select which field I want to do that query on. So I have one in here, marital status. There it is. So I can say when marital status is equal to married, click on save. And now you see here that we have the ability to add two nodes, a green one and a red one. Obviously green is yes, so they are married, and red would be no, they're not married. So if they are married, if they are married, we can add another form by just dragging it in there and say, hey, you know what? Give me the spouse's information. So if I go down here and select spouse, spouse info, it's all good. So we're going to pass all the same information through. We're going to keep on passing that contact over there so we can add it to an account form a little bit later on. If I want, I can provide a previous button by just checking off that previous button, and I can adjust that text. So now as they go through here, they of course can go back. So we'll keep that checked off. Let's click on save here. Next thing I want to do is provide the other branch to this, the false branch. So for that one there, I want them to go straight into the account information. So there we are there. Select my account information and keep pretty much all the same. I want them to be able to go back again, so I'll add that. Click on save. And now as I'm building this out, you can see here that we're starting to build those branches, and you can have some pretty complex type scenarios. So from the spouse side of things, we likely want to be able to go back into that account information. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually branching off, and I'm just, basically redefining which forms I want them to go into, because in this one here I might want them to have a different landing page afterwards, so we don't want to branch back into this account here. So from here, an account, select that account form again, provide that ability to go back, click on save. So each of these forms, of course, you want to make sure that they're expecting the query string parameters to relate those records together. So this account form is actually expecting this contact ID through a query string, so it automatically associates the two records inside of Dynamics CRM Dynamics 365. So from here, now I want to just try to terminate this. So we have to provide a page where they're going to go for confirmation, a landing page, something along those lines. So I'm actually going to drop a couple of these in here to terminate both of those branches. And let's go, let's send this one to the login. So let's just check that off. Okay, click on save. There it is there. And this one here, maybe we want this one here to take them straight to maybe the, forum page. Let's go with that one there. Click on save. There it is. So now we have that flow built out. So it's going to start with the contact. Depending on whether that contact has a spouse or not, it may go into the spouse information, may just go into the account information. So let's click on save and close. Actually, before I do this, there are a couple other things as well. So as you're going through this, things can get kind of messed up. Not really, just bouncing around. So if you wanted to realign that, of course, we do have the refresh layout. And of course, you can zoom in and out. You can move around. So it's really flexible as an environment. You can also export as well. So if I want to, I can export as an image or a PDF. So if you wanted to create a flow and then maybe run it by some people in your team, you can export it and just walk them through that flow as you're going. So I'm going to save and close this. Click on save, and by default it's going to load up that first contact form because that's the starting node. So there it is there. Let's publish this. Now let's take this for a little walkthrough. So I'm actually an administrative user, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open this up as an anonymous user. So let's open up this incognito window. TPC 5. There it is there, home. So once this loads up, we have our new menu item, FormFlow. So clicking on that, of course it's going to drive us into that flow now. Starting with our contact information, and of course you can make it look and feel any way you like. This is pretty, you might want a page title and whatnot. Let's get with this one here. Let's go. Let's start off with the married side. Email address. I'm not going to bother filling in all the form. I'm just going to fill in the required fields. Let's click on submit. So now this is going to drive me into my spouse information. So there we are, my spouse information. Maybe I probably should have put titles on here, but that's all right. I'm thinking you're getting the idea here. So my beautiful wife, Kathy. And let's go with a Kathy at Kathy.com, something a little bit generic there. And you can see, I can submit and back. You can style this, so you can have the back button here and the submit button over here. So if I want, I can click on submit now. It's going to drive me into my account page. So there's my account information. So now into my business information. So there's my account information. If I want to go back, of course, or I can just submit. And I think this one's going to actually take us to the login page. There we go, and into the login page. So a pretty dynamic and versatile type widget. Let's just take the other flow now. So let me go back into this here, and maybe this time I'll go with a different person. And this time, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say that he's single. There we go. Clicking on submit. It's going to take us into right away into the business information because Clinton isn't married. So of course I can type in his business here. The portal connector, and then submitting this is going to take you to, I think, the forum page. I think we configured for that. There we go, into the forums. So as you can see, you can build some pretty robust type flows, and it's going to be a great tool for managing those long applications, whether that's a registration process for events, or maybe it's a membership management application. There's many different scenarios where you could use that type of configuration, control, and power. Okay, so moving along, the next topic is language mapping. So with language mapping, this is the scenario. Most portals, if you think about a user experience, when we're looking at languages, you want your portal to be in a cultured language. So the easiest thing for me to explain this, the easiest way for me to explain this is to use a scenario like Canada. So Canada has two national languages. It has English and it has French. So pretty straightforward stuff. You know, in CRM you would have English and you would have French. So the problem arises when inside of Dynamics CRM, if you specify English, a lot of times it's going to be EN-US, and in French it's going to be, you know, FR-FR. So French France versus FR-CA, which is French Canadian. Because that language pack in Dynamics CRM for French supports FR-FR, when you translate that over to a portal, the problem is that when we go through there and we start setting up all that cultural information, if you have any currency values or, you know, anything along those lines, it's going to format that value in euros. So what we've come up with is a tool to allow you to map languages to any other type of culture. So when we're talking about the CRM language packs that you have available, when you create that French language, FR-FR, but your portals, you want your portal to display Canadian dollars, or it could be, you know, a different scenario. Maybe it's you want your portal to, you know, display some other type of currency or other type of date format. Then sometimes you have to map those languages. So let me jump into the environment here, and I'll show you how that actually works. So with language mapping, so in the portal connector, you would set up your multiple languages, whether they're cultural languages or whether they're just base languages, either, you know, just English or French, or it could be, like I said, the US-EN or CA-EN. What we're going to do is go into our settings under Advanced. So if you have multiple languages already set up, then you'll be able to just go down here into the portal connector settings. And if we go down to the language mapping, you can see here that we have the base one already set up, and it's actually using the CRM English user language code 1033. So if you have multiple languages, then of course you can just create a new language code. You can map it to whichever the Sitefinity language code is, whether that's a cultural language code or just a base code. And this is the CRM language code. So now if you have that French language code inside of CRM, you can map that to the French CA and actually display Canadian dollars, or it could be mapped to the French France, which will display euros. So that's how that actually works, and it's all translated automatically. The translations for the content isn't translated automatically, but it's all marshaled back and forth with the formatting of that language, the formatting of the dates, the formatting of the currencies, so on and so on. So that's a great new feature that's added to the portal connector, and again, it kind of pushes us along the way with our language side of things, because we are the only portal technology really that supports right to left languages and pretty much any other language out there that's difficult to manage within portal solutions. The next topic is the Common Data Service, or CDS 2.0. So for most people in the Microsoft world or in the consulting world, you know what CDS is. But for those folks that aren't familiar with it, the Common Data Service is a framework that Microsoft has been working on for quite some time, and the new version of Common Data Service is actually really not that new. So the Common Data Service is basically the entity structure that the current version of Dynamics 365 Customer Engagement, more commonly known as CRM, is basically built on. So the portal connector has done significant testing with the Common Data Service, obviously because we build portals on that same type of framework. But what's more important about the Common Data Service is that this is the framework that Microsoft has devoted to building any of the new business applications on, which also includes Business Central. Business Central will be the new version of Nav. But it also supports Power Apps and Flow and any other of those Office 365 applications. And essentially what it is just a common location to store data. So think of it this way. So inside of your CRM implementation, you have contacts and you have accounts, and you know what? You might have orders. So that's all pretty standard and common information. So now if you spun up a brand new version of a Business Central that's using the Common Data Service, it isn't yet, as far as I know, but if you did, if it was, and it will be, if you spun up a new version of that Business Central, some of that information, like contacts and accounts and orders, it'd be all pretty similar stuff as your CRM information. So essentially what it is just a common data store for all of that information, which now means that if all of Business Central or Power Apps or Power BI or Flow or Office or other Office 365 applications are all using this centralized data store, then essentially you can build a portal for any of those apps that use that data. Or you know what, maybe you don't even have CRM, maybe you just have an implementation of the Common Data Service and you have some Power Apps running off of it, and you have maybe a custom application that's integrated with CDS, and you're building out a custom application for that, whether that be a desktop application or a web application. But now you'll be able to actually build portals on top of that same structure and framework, the way you build a portal in the portal connector for Dynamic CRM. So it's really not much of what we've done for this release for the Common Data Service. It's more just about ensuring and letting folks know that we did do the testing for the Common Data Service, and it works very flawless and seamless, and you will be able to integrate with that. Finally, on to feature enhancements. So I'm not going to go through every feature enhancement because we have well over 20 feature enhancements to various widgets. So they are listed in our release notes, and you can see the URL on the screen here, www.crmportalconnector.com/developer network/release notes/version 50. So in there, you'll see all those feature enhancements. You'll see some information about the features that we talked about today, the new features, and all of the bug fixes that we put into this version as well. So with that, thank you. This release video is a little bit longer than the previous ones just because we had some major structural and framework elements, but I appreciate you watching to the end. And here is your $200 gift card to Amazon for sticking in there. I'm just kidding, but thanks.